Part 2. Ivan Papanin, 1937. Life on Ice Floe. Diary. 2-6 May. Vodopyanov and Malakov are visibly concerned. Where are Alexeev and Mazurek? But everyone is sure that they have safely landed not far from us. After Malakov's arrival, everyone went to bed, and the four of us, Teodory, Genya, Pyotr Petrovich, and I, unloaded the newly arrived property of our polar station. Having finished this work, we lay down to rest. At 6 o'clock in the evening, we received a pleasing message from Rudolph Island. Radio operator Stromolov contacted the radio station of Alexeev's plane. As we expected, Alexeev landed safely relatively close to our drifting station. The pilot says that he will fly to us soon. The construction of the radio station was completed. Its roof was covered with a large parachute from the H-17O aircraft. The station consists of two departments, radio and engine. The engine was lowered 40 centimeters into the ice, while strengthened, and the ropes were frozen. Then they began to assemble a wind turbine. During this work, we received news from Ilya Pavlovich Mazurek. It also landed safely near the pole. Awesome. Soon, everyone will be assembled. I sent a radiogram home. He wrote that he was quite satisfied with his new place of residence at the pole. Pyotr Petrovich looked up from his work for a moment and handed Ernst a short but very expressive telegram to be transmitted to his family in Leningrad. Happy. We arrange wintering on the local solid ice. 2-7 May. They continued to assemble the windmill. Everyone writes a lot for the Central and Leningrad newspapers. In the tent, Krenkel, crouching down, swears, but diligently passes on all the correspondence. Sima Ivanov helps him with special love. Here is a tireless worker and a real polar explorer. Both radio operators barely have time to cope with the flow of congratulatory telegrams. The poet Lebedev Kamach congratulated us with verses. To you who have mastered the axis of the world, to the heroes of ice victories, from Leningrad to the Pamirs, the Soviet people send greetings. It was not in vain that you fought with the North. The whole world will appreciate your feat. The Soviet Pole is alive and all the heroic crew. The congratulations of the famous pilot of our time, Valery Chkalov, ends with the words, "I warmly congratulate you, comrades, conquerors of the North Pole, on a wonderful victory." And dozens of more congratulations from friends and strangers. It is difficult to convey in words the excitement that we all felt when reading these warm telegrams. There were a lot of events during the day, but by the end of the day you are so tired that, opening the diary, you can hardly force yourself to remember and write it down. This is the end of the entry today. 2-8 May. Alexeev arrived. His plane was immediately unloaded. The number of residents of the pole has increased so rapidly that we are not able to provide everyone with comfortable apartments. We began assembling the main living tent. We chose a good place for it so that we would not have to move this tent until the end of our work at the pole. We inflated rubber pillows for the floor and covered them with skins. This will make our feet warmer. 2-9 May. All our attention is now focused on the radio search for Mazurek's plane. Where is he? On the Mazuruka plane is our hydrological winch. Vasily Sergeyevich flew in search of Mazurek, but unfortunately did not find anything. The construction of a galley, a kitchen, is underway. The weather has deteriorated again. Blizzard, snow, wind, 9 points. Communication with Rudolph is interrupted every now and then. 3-1 May. We established contact with the radio station of Mazurek's plane and talked with him many times during the day. He has landed on an ice floe close to us and is about to join us. I wish that hour would come soon. I wish we could put our entire economy in its place as soon as possible and begin scientific work in full. When I think about how much we have to do, especially Petrovich and Genya, it becomes even scary. The country has entrusted us with a great task, and we are obliged to carry it out in an exemplary manner. We are ready to give everything for this. June. 2 June. Teodori informed the staff of the Leningrad Radio Laboratory of the People's Commissariat of Internal Affairs that the first connection between the pole and the Earth, Rudolph Island, was established by an apparatus manufactured by this laboratory. The appliances work well. They are probably happy there. Pyotr Petrovich has set up his own hydrochemical laboratory and is going to start working with water samples here. 3 June. Ernst received and fully recorded the TASS information for the first time. They learned that the French scientist Charles Papin published an enthusiastic article in the newspaper, L'Humanite. The results achieved by the Soviet expedition to the North Pole are indisputable evidence in favor of the system that dared to set itself such tasks and fulfills them. Shirshov and Fedorov saw the guillemot. All the correspondents on the Ice Floe, and there are a great many of them, hurried to inform their editors about this event. Birds at the North Pole. 4 June. Shortwave amateur radio operators attack Ernst with requests. Everyone wants to be the first to establish radio contact with the pole. Greetings and congratulations continue to arrive. There are a lot of them. What a pity that we cannot answer everyone. We have only one thin, really very strong radio communication line, but unfortunately, one. It is simply amazing how Teodori and Sima crank out such a mass of radiograms. Today they accepted the text of the greeting of the General Secretary of the Central Committee of the Komsomol Kosarev, printed in the newspapers. A brilliant achievement, a brilliant victory. Only the Bolsheviks were able to conquer the pole. Boundless love for the motherland. Bolshevik tempering and endurance guided the brave researchers. Soviet airplanes and engines, manufactured in Soviet factories by Soviet engineers and workers, once again showed their excellent qualities. There are many young people among the participants of the expedition. These are the young people who have been educated by our party, educated by the Leninist Komsomol. She knows no obstacles in her path. An example of courage, heroism, endurance is the new brilliant victory of the Soviet polar pilots for the multi-million mass of the youth of our country. I immediately remembered my recent meetings with Alexander Vasilievich, or simply Sanya Kosarev, a talented leader of Soviet youth. More than once I had to turn to him when I needed help from young people. And young people have always helped out. And Sasha Kosarev met me with a satisfied smile and said cheerfully, "Well, Dmitrievich, you can see for yourself everything is going according to plan, and you were worried. The Komsomol will never let you down. Remember, the Komsomol members are your bosses, and throughout the entire preparation of the expedition, we really felt the great power of the Komsomol patronage and the firmness of the word of the first Komsomol member of the country, Sasha Kosarev. In our small team, which remains to live on the Ice Floe, there is one Komsomol member, Zhenya Fedorov. He is attacked by Komsomolskaya Pravda on the radio, asking him to give correspondence every day. But Zhenya is so busy that he has no time even to sit down to rest. And now he is making gravitational observations. Petrovich tried a homemade winch at the crack, made of a wooden drum mounted on a mast. Hydrobiologist Bogorov sent Petrovich a radiogram with congratulations and wishes of complete success in scientific work. We have a lot to do. 5 June. Finally, Ilya Pavlovich Mazurek arrived. Now everyone is assembled. The last property of our station is being unloaded. A friend of Ernst's, a radio operator working on a turnip steamer in the Caspian Sea, telegraphs that he wants to contact the North Pole by radio. Poor Ernst. It probably won't be enough for everyone. Eugene received a radiogram from his glorious wife that his little son, because of his great resemblance to his father, was also named Eugene. The entire population of our ice floe gathered today at 2 o'clock for a solemn meeting. Otto Yulievich officially announced the opening of a new polar station, North Pole, on drifting ice, and I, as the head of the station, solemnly raised the state flag of the Soviet Union over the ice floe. The air resounded for the first time at the pole with a loud salute from guns and pistols. This meeting was also a farewell meeting. The work is done, the station is organized, which means that now we can fly away. Schmidt made a warm and heartfelt speech before departure. Today we say goodbye to the pole, said Otto Yulievich. We say goodbye warmly, for the pole turned out to be not terrible for us, but hospitable, dear, as if it had waited for centuries to become Soviet, as if it had caught up with its real masters. We're leaving. 4 of our comrades remain at the pole. We are sure that they will hold high the banner that we are now handing them over. We are sure that their work will never be lost in the history of world science, and in the history of our country it will be a page of Bolshevik victories. We would not have won if our Communist Party had not cultivated in us loyalty, steadfastness, and confidence, if we had not won if we had not had such a close-knit collective where the true unity of mental and physical labor was realized. We listened to these farewells on the left, with difficulty restraining our excitement. Then Vodopyanov's command was heard, on the plains. We hugged tightly and kissed the departing people. At 3 o'clock and 40 minutes everyone flew to Rudolph. The 4 of us were left alone and watched as all 4 ships took off within 10 minutes and left us to the south. Have a good trip, dear friends. We went to bed thinking about our good comrades flying to our native warm lands, home. Someone joked that now our food supplies were out of danger. Otherwise, there was a threat that they would not be eaten by our comrades during their stay at the pole. But no one supported this joke. It was a little sad to say goodbye to the friends to whom we had become so accustomed during the long months of preparation for the flight to the pole. In the evening, Petrovich lowered the cable with the weight to measure the depth of the ocean. The depth is 4,290 meters. Petya took a sample of the soil. It turned out to be greenish-gray thin silt. Eat the fish soup that I cooked. The brothers ate and squinted a little. The fish had a perceptible smell. Even the pepper did not beat off the smell. 7 June. Our coordinates are 88 degrees 54 minutes north latitude and 20 degrees west longitude. We got up late. At 12 o'clock in the afternoon, Petrovich and I began to build a deep water station for 3,500 meters. Zhenya set up a magnetic tent and in the evening made the first magnetic observation. The volume of scientific work is increasing. Our dog Veasley does not live up to his nickname today. He tucks his tail and wanders dejectedly on the ice floe. Occasionally he stops and looks around. Cheerful does not want to eat. He doesn't even look at the sausage that I brought to his very nose. We understand that the dog is sad. Yesterday there were so many people here, and now the ice floe is empty. I felt sorry for the dog. I caressed Veasley and whispered to him, "Vizalok, you are our friend. You won't be lost with us." June 9th. We received a radiogram from Rudolph from Schmidt that all the planes were assembled and were soon heading to Moscow. Happy journey to you, our dear friends. Krenkel was repairing batteries. We went skiing to inspect our ice field. Then we got ready for dinner. At meals, they remembered how they saw off their comrades who had flown south. Ilya Mazurek was remembered with a kind word. He left us a beautiful blowtorch which helps out with household work. Zhenya said that when Mazurek departed, Veasley kept trying to jump on the plane. The dog was forcibly driven away. Oh, apparently, the Veasley does not want to live at the pole. 10 June, a long-awaited day of good, quiet weather. It was possible to start equipping our reserve bases. Everyone got up early. Fedorov prepared breakfast, scrambled eggs with bacon and tea. Refueled, well. Having breakfast, we talked about Moscow, about our loved ones, relatives, friends, how they care about us. This is felt in every word of any telegram from the motherland. We distributed our cargo in 3 points. This is done with the following calculation. If the ice separates, and one base sinks or is crushed during compression, then we will be able to live peacefully with the other 2. In order not to disrupt the scientific works of Pyotr Petrovich and Zhenya, I myself engaged in excavations. I shoveled the snow from the first batch of cargo, dug up the boards, put them on a sled, and brought them to the tent. Then he took the second sled and began to carry food. I took 4 rubber cans of 44 kilograms each. We intend to live on a drifting ice floe for many months. It is very important for us to keep our household in perfect order to establish a domestic life. Ernst inspected and filled the batteries, and as soon as he was free, he came to me. "Let me help you," he said. We began to carry kerosene with him. Later, Fedorov and Shirshov came up. Our work went even more amicably. 2 bases have already been selected. We were preparing the 3rd. Krenkel sat up to cook dinner. We made sure that 4 people could carry 500 kilograms of cargo in one go on a sled. True, with such a load, the eyes climb on the forehead. Clothes, food, kerosene were distributed successfully. Now we are not afraid if even one base sinks, we will not be lost. At 5 o'clock in the evening, Krenkel shouted, "Dinner is ready." At this time, we were engaged in setting up a tent near the residential, the 4th main base for current expenses. We sat down to dinner. After the labors, everyone ate with great appetite. They even allowed themselves to drink a small lamp of cognac. After lunch, they lay down to rest for an hour, leaving Fedorov on duty. Zhenya, of course, did not waste time and was on duty processing the materials of his observations. After a short rest, we continued to work again. An important order arrived from Moscow to serve Chkalov's flight over the North Pole to America with weather reports and radio communication. A great deed was conceived by our pilots. It is interesting to know who besides Valery Pavlovich is in the crew of this aircraft. Probably, he takes with him the same strong, intelligent, devoted, and knowledgeable guys as himself. I think that he has the same crew. Last year, Chkalov, Bedukov, and Belyakov flew more than 9,000 kilometers without landing, passed through almost the entire Soviet Arctic. They were over Franz Josef Land, over Severnaya Zemlya, over Yakutia. The government awarded them the title of Hero of the Soviet Union for this flight. Well done. The precious thing is that they did not calm down after their last year's flight, and now they are going to make a new, even more grandiose one. It's no joke to fly non-stop from Moscow through the North Pole to America. We are sure that the guys will complete the task perfectly. This will be a new remarkable victory for our aviation. There is no doubt that the successful landing of an air squadron of heavy aircraft at the North Pole and the organization of our drifting station were a good prerequisite for Chkalov's flight. Previously, from Rudolph to the islands of the American Arctic, the pilot had nowhere to land. Now, 800 kilometers north of Rudolph, on the way to America, there is a Soviet village, albeit a small one. If it is necessary to interrupt the flight, our pilots can land here. But you won't need it. They will fly wonderfully. We will do everything to provide them with excellent communication and weather reports. Although just in case, of course, we will clear the airfield on our floating ice field. For a long time we did not go to bed talking about the new Chkalov flight. What interest it must arouse all over the world. The guys will have to fly almost 10,000 kilometers without landing. Petrovich recalled an interesting fact from the history of aviation. He says that 30 years ago a prize was awarded to the pilot who would fly without landing 1 kilometer. Only a year later, this prize was received by a French pilot who flew a kilometer in a minute and a half. And now, 10,000 kilometers. That's how great aviation technology has stepped in. At that time, no one would have believed that people would be free to cover such distances only 3 decades later. We can be proud of our aviation. Our wonderful pilots Malakov, Chalov, Gromov, Vodopyanov, and others. After drinking tea in the kitchen, Petrovich and I climbed into our sleeping bags. Ernst and Zhenya remained on watch. They now had to make regular observations on meteorology and transmit a report to Rudolf. 11 June. At last the snowstorm ceased completely. Yesterday it did not bother us so much, but on June 8th and 9th it raged with might and main. Now we will have to go clear large snowdrifts. Zhenya says that the day before yesterday, at some moments, the strength of the wind reached 20 meters per second. We understand that these are just flowers and the berries are ahead. We will not have to experience such a blizzard here. At midnight, calm weather set in. There is not a single cloud in the sky. The sun heated our black tent to 24 degrees Celsius. Here is the North Pole for you. The southwest wind moves our ice floe to the northeast. We are approaching the Greenwich meridian. It is possible that soon we will find ourselves in the eastern hemisphere. Petrovich said, the average speed of our drift for the first 17 days is 6 7/10 of a kilometer per day. Further, apparently, the drift will accelerate, but no one can accurately predict this now. Today we got up early, although we slept badly. All night long we talked about how best to serve Chkalov's flight. Krenkel is most worried. Our batteries are dead, but there is no wind, and the wind turbine does not work. We save the engine as an emergency unit only for the most unforeseen cases. There is something to think about when we are responsible for servicing an unprecedented flight across the pole to America. I cooked breakfast. He cooked 3 sausages for each, put caviar and tea. There is no need to complain about the food. Our menu is hearty and varied. As for the taste of our dishes, it depends entirely on the chefs of the kitchen, Teodori and me. I must admit, we are still inexperienced cooks. I removed the loads that remained after the construction of the bases. I poured kerosene into a consumable bag. Then he began to put fish and meat in a refrigerator carved in ice. Although it is cool here, the sun shines around the clock. I am worried that its rays will destroy our rather modest reserves of fresh meat and fish. We sent a telegram to Moscow. In the event of Chkalov's flight over us, we ask you to organize the sending of newspapers and letters from families for us. We hope that Valery Pavlovich will be able to drop this small but valuable parcel from the motherland on our ice floe. I carried cargo. Krenkel was cooking dinner. In the morning, Shirshov sat down in his laboratory to do hydrochemical analyses. At noon, Zhenya handed over to Teodori the results of the next meteorological observations. He cut a food can and made a large basin to wash kitchen utensils in. He made a special device like a watering can to pour kerosene into Primus stoves. Krenkel checked his radio facilities again, and Zhenya processed the materials of gravitational observations. Petrovich also had a concern obtaining chemically pure water. In the evening he came to the tent and said, I examined the crack. It is unrecognizable. The ice is strongly diverging. Krenkel says, we already seem to live on an ice island. The wind moved the ice. I also heard the sound of ice, Eugene remarked. It was about 2 o'clock in the morning when I went to make meteorological observations. Still, I answered, This should not interfere with our life and work. Our ice floe is strong. We will live on it for a long time." "Yes," Shirshov supported me. "Who would have thought that there would be such strong and smooth ice floes in the central polar basin?" Krenkel began to tap his dots and dashes with the radio key. Then he switched to receiving telegrams. Teodorich received, among other things, a radiogram from Lasker. He invites me to play a game of chess with him. I'll have to start practicing. "I'll be back in Moscow, then we'll play," I said. Now the sun shines and warms around the clock, and only the clock reminds us of the nighttime. The Academy of Sciences of the USSR asks us to carry out scientific work, to find out the reasons for the non-passage of short radio waves in the Arctic in certain periods. This is a very interesting problem. 12 June. Fedorov was the first to get up, awakened by the ringing of the alarm clock. Following Zhenya, Ernst woke up. He did not stretch for a long time in bed, as usual, but immediately jumped up. Shirshov and I also decided not to lie down. We got up, had breakfast, listening to the latest news. Every time we listen to the news from the motherland on the radio, I remember with a grateful feeling the wonderful Russian man, engineer, inventor of the world's first radio telegraph, Popov. I cannot imagine, for example, how an air expedition to the North Pole and our work on a drifting ice floe without a radio would have proceeded. Now we are connected with our dear motherland by invisible threads. Radio gives us the opportunity to send any request to Moscow in 2 or 3 hours and get an answer. Hear the voices of dear people. Shirshov hurried to his chemical laboratory to check if the bottles with water samples were frozen. I inspected our household, since after the departure of the planes we did not have time to check all the bags and backpacks. Our life on the ice floe is lively and even more diverse than I had previously imagined. We often think of our friends. How are they? Krenkel sometimes asks. Now, probably, they are sitting at a concert or in the theater. Petya Shirshov mentally transports himself to Moscow. "We must send them news from the ice floe more often," I remarked, "because any long silence makes them worry too much about us." Zhenya also supported me. "Of course," he said, "you can shorten it a little. Transmission of correspondence, but you should not save on small radiograms for your family." I remembered my previous wintering in Franz Josef Land, where my wife and I lived. If only we could organize a drifting station on an ice floe and take our wives with us, I joked, and generally settle on an ice floe with the whole family, then it would really be a real Soviet city. Krenkel, however, did not find this idea entirely successful and immediately put forward a solid argument against it. What are you, Dmitrievich? Then we would have to build ice nurseries, snowy maternity hospitals, build toy factories, and in general we would have to take teachers and nurses with us. After all, bears, as you know, are not adapted to these matters. In the meantime, our wind turbine began to work actively. The wind was picking up. Ernst often went out to see if the windmill was turning well. Over the past few days, we have all dreamed a lot that the wind will finally blow. Our batteries were so low that we were afraid to send an extra word over the radio. They even stopped telling their relatives about themselves. Only meteorological reports were transmitted. I especially wanted to reply to my beloved brother Sasha, a good communist, from whom I received a pleasant, warm telegram. Sasha wrote, "Your victory evokes in me a new sense of responsibility to the motherland and the party for my cause, the protection of the sea, borders of our beloved motherland." The wind was blowing at a speed of 4 to 5 meters per second. The windmill spun. We avoided having to start our gasoline engine. Immediately, each of us wrote and sent letters to his friend, and I, in addition to my brother Sasha. The batteries continued to charge. I went to inspect Petrovich's possessions, hydrochemical and hydrobiological laboratories. They are well equipped. Above the ice hole rises a snow house, in which Petya conveniently placed a winch and his hydrological instruments. Muscovites, of course, do not suspect what a wonderful building material snow is in June. Unfortunately, in the snowy Krinkle house, water came out of the cracks on the ice floor of the radio station. Teodorich will have to move to another apartment. Ernst went to cook dinner, although there was not much cooking, since we have been eating the same borscht and jelly for the third day. Ernst diluted our sweet dish with water, but this did not reduce the acid in it. I think that tomorrow our extremely liquefied jelly will already turn into a fruit drink. After lunch, Eugene processed the materials of gravitational observations. Shirshov was engaged in titration. Ernst was washing dishes. 13 June. At 6 o'clock in the morning, as usual, Krenkel and Fedorov transmitted the meteorological report to Rudolph Island and lay down to rest for 2 hours. They slept poorly and little at night. Petya and I carried snow bricks for the new building at the hydrological winch. I checked the condition of the engine room. We are afraid for the integrity of our engine, since there is a crack directly under it, quickly filling with water. Pyotr Petrovich and I pulled out the motor and installed it on the sled. It would be calmer for him here. Fedorov was busy with his scientific instruments. He took down the tent where he was observing, spread it out to dry. Zhenya decided to move the tent to another place, closer to the living room, so that at the first compression he would be able to quickly save all the valuable devices. I approved of this decision. For the fourth day we have been eating our ill-fated jelly juice. Together with the delicious biscuits made by Ernst, this jelly can still be eaten somehow. Ernst is celebrating his birthday today. At last an abscess burst on his back, which caused such pain when moving that it was difficult to look at Teodorich. We congratulated him on his deliverance from this scourge. I received a telegram from my native Volodichka. How she made me happy. He replied that he felt good. I constantly think about you, my dear. 14 June. The literary agency telegraphs from Moscow that the foreign press is showing great interest in our scientific work. The agency asks regularly, twice a month, to report on life and work on the Ice Floe for foreign newspapers. We went with Ernst on skis to inspect our field. Where there was a crack, now there is a large river. We will have to be on our guard, keep our eyes open so that this crack does not let us down. Shirshov was working at the hole with a winch. I was helping him. At midnight, he would begin to make a daily station, which meant that Pyotr Petrovich would be at the winch for 24 hours. Fedorov examined another part of our ice field and reported that he also noticed large openings and cracks there. We found ourselves on a floating ice island. Polar explorer Sasha Pogasov sent a humorous radiogram. In Moscow, low clouds, temperature, -10 degrees, visibility, 2 meters, precipitation. Urgent intervention of your factory is needed. Take an order for good weather. Maybe someday the Arctic Weather Factory will accept such orders. In the meantime, we have to fight the elements. With us, the blizzard gave way to clear weather. The temperature is -7 degrees. Another guest from the south flew over the ice floe, a fulmar gull. A southwest wind blew. So we can expect to be carried a little to the north. That's nice. We will have the opportunity to conduct additional scientific work in high latitudes. 15 June. Soviet shortwave radio amateurs organized an all-union competition in communication with our radio station. Well, now Krenkel will have trouble with his mouth full. The whole day was spent working at the winch. Only at noon I could not stand it anymore and lay down to rest for 2 hours. Ernst and Zhenya helped our Petrovich. This remarkable young Soviet scientist can serve as an excellent example. He works selflessly and enthusiastically. but Genya does not lag behind him. I noticed that at night our work generally goes worse and makes us sleepy. This is probably due to the earthly habit of sleeping at night. Petrovich asked for fresh fish. I decided to respect him. I took out fresh Nelma, cut it, chose the best pieces, salted it, rolled it in flour, and fried it. Petrovich was very pleased. He works well and fully deserves to be well taken care of by his comrades. Soon the end of our and Petrovich's work is coming. There is a deadline left for raising the bathymeter, and we will finish the daily station. Now we are waiting for Ernst to come and tell us what new things we have heard on the radio and whether any of us have telegrams. We are very interested in when our planes will finally fly from Rudolph to the mainland. I want them to arrive in their native capital as soon as possible. I want everyone to see the Soviet planes that reach the cherished North Pole, stay there for 2 weeks, and return safely to Moscow. June 16th. Funny radiograms are sometimes received by Ernst. Today, for example, he read the following dispatch received from Staraya Russa: "Close the North Pole, it has become cold on the mainland." Shirshov went to chop ice to prepare distilled water. Fedorov continued to install gravity instruments. He didn't have enough stands. I had to take the butter out of the boxes, wrap it in paper, and use the boxes as stands. Then I started making a new hanging table for Shirshov's hydrological samples. For 2 days we had to deal with the hydrological station, feeling the upper border of the warm Atlantic water. These observations are of great scientific value. Soon Petrovich will process the observation materials. Now, while Petrovich and Genya were determining the direction of the drift and clarifying where we were going, I began to put my office in order. I used to think that somewhere, but here, at the North Pole, there would be no bureaucracy and so-called scribbling. It turned out that this was not the case. He had to keep a diary, make all sorts of organizational notes, write correspondence to newspapers, and respond to greeting telegrams. Our icy island is surrounded by a channel 10 to 20 meters wide. It is necessary to carefully observe old and emerging cracks. In the living tent, we set up a table for storing water samples. Here they will not freeze. Genya made the third magnetic point and conducted a series of gravitational observations. He punished our Weasley greatly. He deserves it. He barks in vain. Fedorov pulled the device out of the tent, and Weasley, like a madman, became furious. I think that my lesson will have an effect on the dog, and in the polar night he will not bark in vain. 17 June. Our snow kitchen could not withstand the heat from the Primus stoves and melted. We will build a new one using canvas. Wet snow has fallen. I had to go to the bases and hide my things. Ernst and I listened to Dixon. Audibility was quite good. I really liked the International Review. We are all particularly interested in the struggle of the Spanish people against the counter-revolutionary rebels. Large snowdrifts piled up around the living tent, and they had to be cleared. My tunic was very wet. I returned to the tent to dry. Maybe the blizzard will soon subside. Using his free time, he made a small table by the bed for all sorts of small things. Fedorov stretched the wires to his tent to receive chronometer signals from the radio station. Shirshov took all 50 bottles of water samples and went to work in the laboratory. I was about to go to bed. It was 1:30 in the morning when Krenkel came and reported. In 2 hours, Kalov is flying from Moscow to America. The soul rejoices for him and his crew. I want the guys to be fine so that they successfully complete an important state deed. After Ernst's report, I could not sleep for a long time. Tomorrow will be a hot day. 18 June. From Rudolph Island, we were informed that Valery Chkalov had taken off at 4 o'clock in the morning. I arranged with Ernst to go to bed log, as he would have to work all night. After resting for a while, Teodorich sat down at the radio. "I can hear the radio station of Shchelov's plane well," he said. "Soon the plane will be approaching Rudolph. The guys are doing their own thing. Petrovich is titling, and Fedorov is doing a daily series on gravity. I can't think of anything else but this unprecedented flight." My thoughts, as well as the thoughts of all citizens of our motherland, are now together with the heroic pilots who for the first time in history are paving the air route from Moscow to America through the North Pole. But there are also their own everyday worries. Cheerful has made trouble for us again. I took out a roast pig, cut it into pieces, and put it in the open air to air it out, while Jolly pounced on the piglet and ate so full that he could hardly move his legs. We decided to fine him, not to feed him for 3 days. Ernst received a radiogram from Kalov's plane, flying blindly, then light icing. We are waiting with bated breath for new information. A slight shaking in the engine, the plane's radio station reports. An hour later, we hear Rudolph's lighthouse. "It's all right." My heart was relieved. "Fly happily, our dear brothers." He made a radio table for Krenkel. After Chkalov's flight, we will immediately move the radio station to the living tent to be calmer about the equipment. After all, radio is life for us, and we especially value it. We take care of our child, appliances, and the wind turbine that honestly charges our batteries like an affectionate mother. Without this wind turbine, it would have been difficult, because there would not have been enough gasoline for the engine for long. At 10 o'clock in the evening, Ernst said, "The flight is going well. Everything is in order." Every 3 hours, Zhenya gives additional weather reports directly to the Shchelov plane and to Moscow. On this night, of course, none of us even thinks of going to bed. We keep a watchful eye on Chkalov's flight. Maybe he will turn towards us, fly over us. Although it is unlikely that Valery Pavlovich will want to make a detour. For him, every extra kilometer of the flight range in a straight line is important. 19 June, an unusually tense day. All night long, Ernst was on duty on the radio, watching Chkalov's flight. At 5 o'clock in the morning, Teodorich went into the tent and said, "Chkalov is halfway between Rudolph and the pole." From the aircraft transmitted, "We are going along the 58th meridian to the pole. On the right is a cyclone. On the left is a flat cloud layer." After a while, we heard some kind of rumble. "Chkalov's plane?" Zhenya jumped out into the street. There was nothing. But immediately he ran back and shouted to me through the door, "Yes, it's Chkalov, but you can't see the plane. It's all cloudy." I hear the engine perfectly. It was 5 o'clock and 50 minutes in the morning. Everyone jumped out of the tent. They sent 1,000 curses to the clouds. When it is not necessary, the sky is clear, but at this, the most precious moment for us, everything is covered with clouds. We hoped so much that Shchelov would see our station and drop at least one newspaper and perhaps even letters from home. After all, we have been waiting for them so much. The hum of the engine became quieter and quieter. The plane was heading north. We were in such a state of excitement that it is difficult to describe. It was just anger that people were not yet able to restore order in the heavenly economy. The hum of the engine also ended. Ernst said to me, "Dmitrik, let's start the emergency light. There is no wind, and the batteries are dead. I'm afraid not to let the Kalov guys down. After all, we are the last Soviet point for them, which can listen to them for a long time." I brought an airplane stepladder. I put a motor on it, fastened it with a silk rope, and started it for half an hour. Then Ernst listened to Chkalov's plane at the appointed time and started the engine again. The weather is disgusting. Our mood matches the weather. On the street, clothes get wet, snow melts in the kitchen, The walls are falling. The radio room began to drip heavily. Teodorich brought Chkalov's radiogram. We read, "We have crossed the pole. Tailwind. We see ice fields with cracks and divorces. The mood is cheerful. I want so much to send a warm radiogram to the Chkalov Troika, but you can't take away precious time from the guys." Petrovich is preparing his hydrological equipment because tomorrow morning he will start building a deep water station. I dug up snow near the tent, reached the ice, and there was a big crack. If you hit it on foot, salt water came out. It turns out that the ice field on which we live is riddled with many cracks in different directions. This forces us to be even more attentive. Although we had all slept very little for the last 2 days, we had to distribute the work so that one of us would observe the field. These cracks are a threat to us. We received an order from Moscow. Stop the transmission of additional meteorological reports. Teodorich is asleep now. He was awake for 36 hours at a time. 20 June. Petrovich and I got up a little earlier than usual, and Ernst greeted us with good news. Chkalov is flying over Canada. A winch was prepared. Today we have another hard work ahead of us, measuring the depth of the ocean. At 12:30 o'clock, the lowered cargo reached the bottom. The depth turned out to be 4,374 meters, 84 meters more than in the first measurement. This means that here, in the center of the polar basin, as Pyotr Petrovich assumed, there are great depths and there can be no talk of the proximity of the Earth, which some scientists counted on. Measuring the depth, I had to unscrew 4 kilometers of cable on a winch. Our coordinates today are 88 degrees 47 minutes north latitude and 10 degrees west longitude. The cargo was pulled back to the surface within 5 hours. When the last bathymeter was removed, it turned out that it was badly damaged, and the thermometers on it were destroyed. They could not withstand the pressure. Then Pyotr Petrovich made one station to a depth of 1,000 meters. The weather is foggy, windless. A weak thaw. Visibility is 200 meters. Wet snow often falls. Yesterday, Zhenya finished gravitational measurements. In 3 places, he made magnetic determinations. The wind and current carry us along with the colossal masses of ice, allowing us to explore more and more new places. A wonderful fate. At dinner, we remembered that tomorrow is exactly a month of our life on an ice floe. We sent a radiogram to the team of polar explorers of Rudolph Island, thanking them for their help in our work. The first month passed quite quickly in our worries about the organization of the entire plant facilities, scientific work, and the creation of bases. In fact, during this time we were just getting used to the ice floe, says Shirshov. We have already made a lot of discoveries in a month. Krenkel replied, who was setting up the radio station at that time. Very little has been done, Eugene objected. Although our plan has been implemented, if we can talk about exact plans on a drifting ice floe at all, serious scientific research requires a long life here. Yes, I said. Zhenya is right. We will have to live in this hut for 9 or 10 months, or maybe a year. What do you think, brothers? Well, Shirshov replied, a year is not such a long time. In my work, time always passes very quickly. I didn't even notice how this month passed. I have the same thing, I remarked. In the future, you need to load yourself in such a way, fill every minute with work and scientific research, so that you have no time to be bored. We decided to write radiograms to our relatives, and for 10 minutes only the puffing of people writing could be heard in the tent. Already before going to bed, Teodori ran into the tent. Hooray, he shouted. Chkalov landed in America at a military airfield in Vancouver. The 4 of us together shouted, Hurrah! In honor of our heroic pilots. Teodori and I immediately wrote a radiogram to the main directorate of the Northern Sea Route, a kind of report from our station on how we ensured the flight of the Ant-25 in the pole area. Shallow's flight was served by meteorological messages and was also monitored on the radio on a par with other stations. We are glad that we managed to hear the noise of engines above us. The station at the pole, Shkalov's flight, is a logical development of all the work on the development of the Arctic. Undoubtedly, in the very coming years, our aircraft will make such flights regularly. It is necessary, however, to have meteorological reports from the north of Greenland and Canada. We personally hope to take part in this. We have no doubt that in the coming years on Rudolph Island, as well as at the pole, we will sell pies to transit passengers. Papanin Krenkel, June 21st. So today is exactly a month of our life on an ice floe. And it must be said that until now we have no reason to be dissatisfied with it. It carries the station well. We know that millions of Soviet people would consider it a blessing to be in our places and to do similar work. We have gathered to celebrate the 1-month anniversary of our landing on the ice. But the celebration, obviously, will not succeed. You can't get around the trouble. It is necessary to equip the kitchen and immediately move the radio to another place. Because Krenkel is not able to work. It drips on his head, floods with water. We decided to use our white tent as a temporary kitchen. Anyway, in the second half of August, you will have to put a eiderdown blanket on the living tent, and then it will be possible to simultaneously make a capital kitchen out of ice for a long time. We had lunch in the new kitchen. The menu today turned out to be successful. Pea soup, fried fish, and compote with the addition of a small portion of cognac for the sake of the holiday. At lunch, they agreed to submit to Pravda, Izvestia, and TASS articles on the results of scientific observations for the first month. Until the evening, Pyotr Petrovich and Zhenya processed the materials. After midnight, Ernst and I sent a long article to Pravda entitled "A Month on the Ice Floe." 2 June. They put the living tent in order. They took all the things, skins and air mattresses out the door, lifted the plywood, dug up the snow, laid the pads, and turned the rubber floor inside so that water did not get on the fur. Then they laid plywood, furs, and put the beds in their place. Having finished the thorough cleaning, they dispersed and went about their business. Teodorich and I were rearranging the radio station. We moved the mast, stretched the antenna, and strengthened the table. Ernst placed all his equipment, transmitter, receiver, batteries, made an antenna input, and 30 minutes later began to try the radio. Ernst quickly eliminated the crack that appeared, and at 8 o'clock in the evening transmitted another meteorological report to Rudolph Island. All is well. In the meantime, Zhenya moved the box with instruments to the new room, stretched the wire from the chronometers to his observatory for measuring the force of gravity. Pyotr Petrovich made calculations on titration. At 2 o'clock in the morning, Ernst received a radiogram from Moscow, from the main directorate of the Northern Sea Route. It reported that in the coming days a non-stop flight of an aircraft under the Kiev command of hero of the Soviet Union Gromov was expected to pass through our drifting station. To register the flight of the aircraft, E.K. Fedorov is appointed as the sports commissar of the Central Aero Club of the USSR, who is obliged to register the place and time of the flight in the form of the act additionally transferred to us. That's great. As soon as the Chkalov trio finished their legendary flight, other Soviet Eagles intend to surpass it. Zhenya says that Gromov, apparently, wants to set a world record for the distance of flight in a straight line and along a broken line. Well, Ernst, get ready for work. 2-3 June. Fedorov and Krenkel got up 15 minutes late. They were let down by the alarm clock, which for some reason did not ring in time. It turned out that at night, when everyone was resting, Zhenya woke up 3 times from untimely alarm clocks. In the end, he was so angry that he put the alarm clock in the bag. It is clear that after that the bell was no longer heard. We were convinced that we had done the right thing by moving the radio station to another place. The snow wall, which had faithfully served the former radio station for a long time, collapsed that night. If we had not removed all the devices from there in time, they would have been covered with snow. I sent a telegram to my dear Volodykshka and asked her, together with the wives of Krenkel, Shirshov, and Fedorov, to send letters and newspapers with Gromov's plane. Perhaps she will be able to drop a package for us while flying over the station. After lunch, everyone gathered to listen to a concert and news from the motherland. In Moscow and abroad, especially in America, much attention is paid to the flight of Valery Chkalov. Greeting telegrams are sent to him from all sides. 2-4 June. At the request of the headquarters of the flight, Gromov transmitted to Moscow detailed data on magnetic declination in our areas. This is the result of the scientific work of Zhenya Fedorov. We are glad that our work is already bringing practical benefits. The blizzard covered all the bases and tents with snow. I went there, tied the weights tighter, and checked for cracks under them. I returned home covered in snow. Eugene began to teach meteorology to Ernst and me. We've done this before. Now Zhenya shows the new devices. I think that at the end of the month I will be able to start conducting meteorological observations on my own. The technique of these observations is simple. The key is to learn how to properly encrypt the data in the summary. In the evening, Pyotr Petrovich went to work in the laboratory until 5 o'clock in the morning. Teodorich turned on the music and treated us to a concert. They listened with great pleasure. Krenkel writes a new article for Pravda. Petrovich, leaving for the laboratory, said that he was going to hand over the correspondence to Leningradskaya Pravda the next day. Zhenya again processes the materials of astronomical and gravitational observations. Finally, our 2-day rush to improve the camp is over. I had to spend the whole day preparing ice anchors instead of wooden stakes for radio masts. Carrying them to a new place significantly improved audibility. True, Petrovich had to sacrifice 300 meters of cable from his reserves for this. Our windmill is thoroughly fortified. Its foundation consists of 2 food cans dug into the ice. Now even a storm wind will not bring down this car, which diligently supplies us with free energy. 2-5 June. Ernst went to bed after breakfast as he was on duty all night. Now we have the following arrangement. Krenkel is on duty every night. He has the duty to go out every hour and inspect if cracks have appeared anywhere, so that we know in time about the impending danger and can save our property. I train in meteorology and go with Zhenya to each date of weather observations. For the last 2 days a strong wind had been blowing. Our ice floe was carried 4 miles to the east. After lunch, Teodori and I began to install a new mast for a special antenna so that he could contact radio. Amateurs from different countries. Probably more than one shortwave radio dreams of communication with our radio station UPOL. We were happy to hear through the radio center of Dixon Island information about how the participants of the Polar Air Expedition in Moscow were met today. On behalf of the Central Committee of the Party and the Council of Ministers of the USSR, Vlas Yakovlevich Shuber spoke at the Central Aerodrome in Moscow and warmly greeted the participants of the world's first air expedition to the North Pole who returned to their homeland. Shortly before flying to the pole, I accidentally learned that Vlas Yakovlevich played a big role in my fate. When at a meeting of the Politburo of the Central Committee of the All-Union Communist Party, Bolsheviks, There was a discussion of the question of who should be appointed to the post of head of the drifting station. Chuber warmly supported my candidacy. He said that he knew me well from the fronts of the Civil War and from peaceful work in the Crimea and Ukraine. During the preparation for the expedition, when I had to turn to him for help as deputy chairman of the Council of People's Commissars and People's Commissar of Finance of the USSR, I invariably met with great attention from him, and, despite his great workload with state affairs, he found time to take care of our expedition. We are very happy and pleased that our work is so well appreciated in our homeland. I am looking forward to a telegram from my Volodichka, since today she is to receive my letter delivered by plane from the pole. Ernst taps the key, calls for radio amateurs, but the faint audibility does not allow him to establish a connection. It's good that the fierce blizzard is over. Our tents were covered with snow. At night we slept badly. We listened to the gusts of wind, often went out to inspect the bases. The air temperature is 2 degrees below zero, and in the tent from 4 to 8 degrees Celsius. The audibility of the Comintern radio station improved significantly. Every morning we listened to a review of newspapers transmitted from Moscow. Today, to our mutual delight, the sun came out. In the fresh air, I was pouring gasoline from rubber containers into a metal tank. He poured 18 cans. I spent a lot of time fixing the Elvire, but I had to give it up. He sucked gasoline according to the old method, with his mouth through a tube. During this operation, I involuntarily swallowed fuel. When I returned to the tent, Ernst joked, "Do not smoke near it and do not light a fire. It is flammable. It can explode." Eugene made an astronomical determination. We were carried back to the north for 4 miles. Pyotr Petrovich lowered the turntable today to determine the currents. It shows drift very well. Theodori established the first radio contact with an amateur. He was a Norwegian shortwave from Ålesund. Sometimes we listen to concerts from Paris, Stockholm, London. Ernst still works on the radio. We are all waiting for what news he will hear. What a joy! Ernst received a telegram from Moscow. The participants of the air polar expedition were received in the Kremlin. We are thrilled by the great honor that the country gives to the work of Soviet pilots and Arctic explorers. I wanted so much to take at least one look at the meeting in Moscow. End of the second part. Look for the next and previous parts of this story on our channel. Subscribe to our channel so you don't miss new episodes about explorers and freight forwarders, as well as about other exciting historical facts and stories. We will be very grateful for your subscription and likes to promote our interesting and useful videos. We love you and work for you.